The knock came at 12:17 in the morning. 3 quick taps, a pause, then one softer tap that made me sit upright before I was fully awake. No one knocked on my door that way except Claire Bennett. I crossed the living room in bare feet, nearly stepped on the rolled blueprints I had left beside the couch, and opened the door without checking the peephole. Claire stood in the hallway, wearing faded jeans, a gray sweater, and the white sneakers she usually saved for long walks along the lake. Her dark hair was twisted into a loose knot, though several strands had escaped around her face. In one hand, she held a cream-colored envelope. In the other, nothing. That was what unsettled me most. Claire never came to my door empty-handed. She brought soup when my father had a bad week, coffee when I worked through the night, or a screwdriver when she had somehow broken something in apartment 4B and expected me to know how to fix it. But that night, she stood there with only the envelope pressed against her ribs, as if it contained something powerful enough to alter the shape of the hallway between us. "Are you okay?" I asked. She looked past me into my apartment. The lamp beside the couch was still on. Half a glass of water sat on the coffee table. My laptop had gone dark over a set of structural calculations. Nothing in the room explained why a woman I had known for 3 years would appear after midnight, looking like she had already made a decision, and still hoped I might stop her. "Daniel," she said, "if I told you I was leaving Chicago on Sunday, would you ask me to stay?" For a second, I thought I had misunderstood her. The building was quiet except for the hum of the old elevator and the faint hiss of rain against the stairwell windows. Claire held my gaze. She did not smile. She did not soften the question or pretend it was a joke. For 3 years, she had lived 12 feet from me across the hall. I knew how she took her coffee, which stair squeaked beneath her left foot, and that she hummed under her breath when she was trying not to cry. I knew she hated cilantro, loved old mystery novels, and always gave away the last slice of pizza, even when she wanted it. I knew she spent her days running literacy programs in neighborhoods where every dollar had to be defended twice. I knew the exact sound of her laugh through a closed door. But I had never seen her look at me the way she did then. Steady, frightened, and unwilling to let me hide behind kindness. "What happened?" I asked. Her fingers tightened around the envelope. "I got the Denver offer. I knew about the interview." She had told me the position was executive director of a literacy initiative with 3 branches, a real budget, and the authority to build programs instead of begging for permission to keep them alive. She had also told me not to make a big deal of it because hundreds of people had probably applied. So I had not made a big deal of it. I had wished her luck, tightened the loose handle on her suitcase, and acted as if the thought of her moving 1,000 miles away did not feel like someone removing a load-bearing wall from my life. "That's incredible," I said. "That isn't what I asked. If you have ever watched fear answer before your heart had the chance, then you already know how dangerous the next few seconds were. Tap like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. If someone you loved was about to leave, would you ask them to stay, even if staying might cost them something?" I looked at the envelope. "Have you accepted?" "I have until 9 tomorrow morning." "So you came over at midnight to ask what I think?" "No." Her voice softened. "I came over to ask what you want. There are questions that reveal information, and there are questions that remove every place a man has been hiding. Claire's did the second. I wanted her. I wanted Saturday mornings at the coffee shop with her book open beside my blueprints. I wanted her knocking on my door because the smoke detector chirped, because she had made too much soup, because she had heard my father was having a bad day, and knew I would forget to eat. I wanted the almost kiss we had abandoned on the roof the previous summer. I wanted the future I had been careful not to name. But wanting had never been the part that frightened me. My ex-wife, Lauren, had once turned down a fellowship in London without telling me. 2 years later, during the argument that ended our marriage, she said she had stayed because of me, and hated me for not becoming worth the sacrifice. I had never asked her to stay. That had not stopped the staying from becoming my debt. Since then, I had built my life around one rule: never ask someone to make her world smaller for you. Claire waited. I leaned one shoulder against the doorframe because suddenly standing upright took effort. I would never ask you to give up an opportunity like that for me. The hurt crossed her face so quickly I almost convinced myself I had imagined it. That, she said, is also an answer. Claire, I didn't mean... I know exactly what you meant. She gave me a small, exhausted smile. You're a good man, Daniel. You are careful with everybody's freedom. The elevator cables groaned somewhere behind her. She looked down at the envelope, then held it toward me. I took it automatically. Inside was a printed offer letter with her name at the top, and a salary high enough to make clear that Denver valued what Chicago had been taking for granted. I wanted to be sure, she said. Sure of what? That I wasn't leaving something real because neither of us knew how to say it. My grip tightened on the paper. She nodded once, as though I had confirmed a difficult measurement. Good night, Daniel. She crossed the hall. Her key was already in the lock when I found the words I should have said first. Claire. She looked back. I could have stopped her then. I could have told her the truth in one clean sentence. Instead, I said, I'm proud of you. Her eyes shone, but she did not let the tears fall. That's the problem. Then she went inside and closed the door. I did not sleep. At 2 a.m, I was still sitting on my couch with Claire's offer letter on the coffee table, and every quiet kindness of the past 3 years moving through my head like evidence presented too late. She had arrived in apartment 4B on a rainy Thursday in October, carrying 2 boxes at a time because she had refused to pay the movers for an extra hour. I had been coming home from a site inspection and found her trapped halfway up the stairs with a carton labeled books, not decor. You know elevators exist, I had said. Ours doesn't believe in Thursdays. I took the box from her. It barely believes in electricity. That was the beginning. At first, we were simply neighbors who became useful to each other. I signed for her packages. She watered the basil plant I kept forgetting to kill properly. When the building lost heat during a January freeze, she brought over a space heater and sat on my kitchen counter while I argued with the property manager. When her bathroom faucet began spraying sideways, I replaced the washer while she read the instructions aloud in a fake British accent. The danger was never in the dramatic moments. It was in the ordinary ones. It was in the way she put cinnamon in my coffee, after noticing I always added it at the cafe. It was in the fact that she knew I hated olives, but would eat them rather than send a pizza back. It was in how my apartment looked more like a place where a person lived after she had been inside it. She learned about my father slowly. At first, I told her only that he lived in an assisted care community near Oak Park. Then she saw me return one night with dried blood on my sleeve after he had fallen against a cabinet. She did not ask for the full story. She heated soup, set it in front of me, and waited. My father has dementia, I said. Claire nodded. How long? 2 years since the diagnosis. Longer, probably. Do you have help? My sister lives in Milwaukee. The facility is good. That wasn't what I asked. It was the first time she had used that sentence with me. Even then, she had been asking for more than facts. I told her the truth. My father sometimes remembered that I was his son, and sometimes called me by my uncle's name. He could still beat me at checkers on a clear afternoon. On bad days, he accused the staff of stealing his truck, though he had sold it 6 years earlier. I visited 3 times a week because I could, because I loved him, and because guilt had a way of turning every missed visit into a moral failure. After that, Claire began asking about him without making me explain. Once a month, she came with me. She brought large print mystery novels and read the back covers aloud until he chose one. He called her the book lady, even after he remembered everyone else. She never complained when plans changed. That was part of why I was afraid to make plans with her. We had crossed the line once, or almost crossed it. The previous July, our building held its annual cookout on the roof. By 10, everyone else had gone downstairs. Claire and I remained beside a string of cheap lights, sharing the last 2 bottles of beer. The city glowed around us, windows stacked against the dark. She had kicked off her sandals and rested her feet on the low brick ledge. "You know, Mrs. Alvarez thinks we are secretly married," she said. "Mrs. Alvarez thinks the mail carrier is in witness protection. She has evidence. Of our marriage, of everything." I smiled. "Should we disappoint her?" Claire turned toward me. "Are we?" The humor left her voice so gently that I almost missed it. A strand of hair had caught against her cheek. I reached out and moved it before I could think better of it. My fingers stayed near her face. She looked at my mouth. I leaned in. My phone rang. The assisted living center said my father had wandered through an unlocked service door and fallen in the parking lot. I left without explaining more than, "It's my dad." Claire drove because my hands were shaking too badly to trust behind the wheel. She sat in the emergency waiting room until sunrise. My father needed 6 stitches but was otherwise fine. On the drive home, I told her I could not be anything more than what I already was. I said my father needed me. My work needed me. I did not have room to make promises I might break. Claire stared through the windshield. "I didn't ask you for a promise, I know. No, you don't." After that, she never stepped close enough for us to almost kiss again. At 5:30 in the morning, I heard a drawer close across the hall. At 6, tape tore across cardboard. At 6:30, I opened my door. 3 moving boxes were stacked outside hers. Claire stood over them with a black marker, her hair down now, her face composed. The offer letter was no longer in my apartment. At some point before dawn, she must have slid it under her door with the spare key card I kept for emergencies. "You accepted," I said. She capped the marker. At 12:43, 9 was the deadline. I didn't need until 9. The answer landed where it was supposed to. I looked at the labels. Kitchen. Office. Donate. You already had boxes. I've had them for a week. And you didn't tell me. I told you I interviewed. That is not the same as telling me you might leave in 5 days. She folded her arms. Would it have changed anything? I wanted to say yes. Instead, the honest answer was worse. I don't know. That's why I didn't tell you. The door at the end of the hallway opened, and Mrs. Alvarez emerged carrying a laundry basket. She was 76, 5 feet tall, and more informed about the building than the management company. She looked from the boxes to me. So he failed. Claire closed her eyes. "Good morning, Rosa." Mrs. Alvarez clicked her tongue at me and stepped into the elevator. Engineers. They can see every problem except the one in front of them. I am a structural engineer, I called after her. That is literally my job. The elevator doors closed on her unimpressed face. Claire almost smiled. The almost made it worse. She picked up a small brass key from the console beside her door and held it toward me. "I need you to take this." It was the key to the old Ashland Branch Library, a red brick building the city had closed 7 years earlier. Claire's nonprofit had spent 2 years trying to turn it into a neighborhood literacy center. I had volunteered to inspect the structure and create a preliminary reuse plan. We had attended community meetings, chased grants, and imagined children reading beneath restored arched windows. 3 weeks earlier, the city had rejected the proposal, citing renovation costs. "You keep it," I said. "I won't need access after Friday. We're clearing out the donated books before I go. The board is abandoning the project?" "The board is being practical. You hate practical. I hate watching good people pour themselves into a building no one will fund." She pressed the key into my palm. "The final volunteer day is Saturday. Shelves come down, books get transferred, and that's it." The cold metal settled against my skin. "Let me help." "You already did. I mean Saturday." She studied me with the same directness she had used at midnight. "Why?" "Because I had told you to go when I wanted you to stay. Because I could not stand the idea of our last shared project ending without me. Because I was beginning to understand that refusing to ask for anything was not the same as being selfless. Because I said I would see it through," I answered. Her expression did not change, but she stepped aside and lifted the box marked "Office." "10 o'clock," she said. "Do not make me regret giving you one more thing to finish." By 10, the hallway smelled like packing tape and coffee. Claire had tied her hair back and traded the gray sweater for a navy work shirt with the Literacy Center's logo over the heart. I brought 2 coffees and a paper bag from the bakery downstairs. She took the cup, but not the bag. "Bribery?" "Breakfast." "I already ate." "You had half a banana while standing over a box." Her eyebrows lifted. "Were you watching through the peephole?" "The peel is in the recycling bin." She glanced toward the open bin beside her door, then back at me. "That explanation is less alarming." For the first time since midnight, her smile reached her eyes. It lasted only a second, but I felt it like sunlight through a cracked blind. We drove to the library in my truck with the windows down because the air conditioning had stopped working in May, and I kept insisting I would fix it before winter. Claire balanced her coffee between both hands. Chicago moved around us in a bright August haze. Delivery vans double-parked, cyclists slipping between lanes, restaurant workers hosing sidewalks before lunch. At a red light, she said, "You don't have to make this weekend easier for me. I'm not trying to. What are you trying to do?" I tightened my hand around the steering wheel. "I don't know yet." She turned toward the window. At least that answer is honest. The Ashland Branch Library occupied a corner lot between a laundromat and a small Catholic school. Its limestone steps were chipped, weeds pushed through the iron fence, and plywood covered 2 lower windows. But the bones were good. The roof trusses were sound. The masonry needed repointing, not replacing. The original oak circulation desk still stood beneath 30 years of dust. Claire unlocked the side door. Sunlight slipped through the high windows in pale columns. 6 volunteers were already sorting boxes. Mrs. Alvarez sat at a folding table assigning labels with the authority of a field commander. 2 teenagers carried stacks of children's books toward the loading area. Jamal Reed, Claire's program coordinator, was unscrewing a shelf from the wall. He saw me and lowered the drill. "You came." I said I would. He glanced at Claire. "Did he say anything else useful?" "Jamal." "What?" "We have 4 days left. Efficiency matters." I set down my tool bag. "How much do you know?" "Enough to be disappointed in both of you." Claire handed him a roll of labels. "Transfer inventory. Now." He grinned and walked away. We spent the morning dismantling the reading room we had once planned to build. Every object carried the shape of a future that would not happen. Low shelves for picture books, a wide table for tutoring, a corkboard where Claire wanted parents to post job listings and school notices. I removed brackets while she wrapped shelves in moving blankets. Around noon, she found the pencil marks on the west wall. Months earlier, during a community open house, children had lined up to mark their heights beside their names. The city had not authorized it. Claire had handed them the pencil anyway. She ran her fingertips over the names. "We can photograph it," I said. "That's not the same." "No." A boy named Mateo had drawn a star beside his measurement. Claire stared at it longer than the others. "He started reading chapter books this summer," she said. "His mother cried when he finished one by himself." "You did that?" "He did that. You gave him a place to try." She looked around the empty room. For 6 months. Then the roof insurance expired, the grant died, and the city decided literacy could wait until the numbers looked better. The anger in her voice was quiet, which meant it had been there a long time. "Denver won't make you wait," I said. "They have funding, staff, a board that understands programs need more than applause. You should have all of that." She looked at me. "Then why do you look like you're arguing with yourself every time you say it?" Before I could answer, Mrs. Alvarez called Claire to settle a disagreement over which boxes belonged to which elementary school. I went outside and sat on the library steps with my phone. There were 3 missed calls from my office, 2 emails from my project manager, and a reminder for a partnership review on Monday. I ignored all of them and opened the structural report I had completed for the library. The city's cost estimate was wrong. Not wildly wrong. Wrong in the way public estimates often became wrong when everyone priced for the worst possible interpretation. The report assumed full roof replacement, complete window replication, and interior demolition down to the masonry. My inspection had recommended localized roof repair, restoration of 16 windows, and reuse of most interior framing. I had said so at the final meeting. The city's consultant called my figures optimistic. My firm's managing partner, Peter Walsh, told me not to push. We wanted the city's downtown transit contract, and embarrassing its consultant over a neighborhood library was not considered strategic. A private foundation had offered to fund 40% of the renovation if the city secured the rest. The deadline for a revised capital package was Monday at noon. Monday. I called Peter. He answered with, "Please tell me you are on your way to the Fulton site. I need 48 hours of drafting support." "For what?" "The Ashland Library." Silence. "The dead non-profit project?" he asked. "The estimate is inflated by almost 30%. If I produce a stamped alternative scope by Monday, the foundation may reconsider. Daniel, we discussed this. We discussed politics. We did not discuss whether the building can be saved. The building is not our client. The community group paid us $1 so the inspection could be pro bono and still fall under a formal agreement. That technicality does not give you permission to risk the firm. I can do it under my own license." Peter exhaled slowly. "Your partnership vote is in 6 weeks. I know. Then hear me clearly. Do not use firm staff, firm insurance, or the firm's seal on a rushed package the city has already declined. What if I use none of those? Then you carry the liability, and you explain to the committee why your judgment vanished over a literacy center." Through the open library door, Claire was kneeling beside Mateo's pencil mark, photographing the wall before it disappeared behind storage crates. "My judgment didn't vanish," I said. "It finally showed up." I ended the call. The revised plan needed architectural drawings, not only structural calculations. I knew one architect willing to work fast enough and angry enough to enjoy proving a city consultant wrong. My younger sister, Megan, answered on the second ring. "You only call during business hours when you need something illegal or unpaid," she said. "Unpaid? Disappointing." "What is it?" I told her. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, "Is this about the building or the woman across the hall?" "Yes." That was not an either-or answer. It is the only honest one I have. Megan sighed. "Send me everything." Claire found me still sitting on the steps. "What happened?" she asked. "Nothing yet." She followed my gaze to the brass key in my hand. "Daniel, the foundation deadline is Monday. The city's estimate is padded. If we submit a revised scope— No, you have not heard the plan. I have heard 18 months of plans. This one is based on the actual bid assumptions. This one is based on the fact that I told you I'm leaving." Her words stopped me. She folded her arms, but her eyes were tired rather than angry. "Do you understand how this looks?" "Yes." "Tell me." "It looks like I couldn't say what I wanted, so I found a building to say it for me." "Exactly. That doesn't make the numbers wrong." "No, but it makes your timing cruel." I flinched. Claire rarely used words carelessly. She stepped closer and lowered her voice so the volunteers could not hear. "I spent a year asking the city to treat this place like it mattered. I spent another year wondering whether you saw me as more than the woman who borrowed your ladder. Now, within 12 hours of learning I'm leaving, you want to resurrect both possibilities without admitting either one is personal. I'm admitting the library is personal. The library is easy for you. Buildings make sense. Loads transfer. Cracks have causes. You can calculate how much pressure something will take before it fails. And people don't. No. People tell you what they need, and you still hide behind the safest interpretation." I looked at her, at the woman who had crossed the hall after midnight, and risked hearing exactly what I had given her. "What do you need?" I asked. Her face changed, not softening but opening enough for me to see what the answer cost. "I needed you to say my leaving would hurt. It will. I needed you to say it last night." "I know." She nodded. "Then don't turn this building into an apology I never asked for." She walked back inside. I remained on the steps until Mrs. Alvarez came out carrying an empty box. She sat beside me without asking. "You made a mess," she said. "I'm aware." "Good." Awareness is the first cheap step. I glanced at her. "Do you have a second expensive one?" "Tell the truth before you fix things." I did tell her the truth. "No. You told her facts. Men confuse facts with truth because facts do not require courage." She tapped the box against my knee and stood. "Also, the west bathroom toilet is running." By late afternoon, the volunteers had cleared half the building. Claire spoke to me only about practical matters. I repaired the toilet, loaded boxes, and did not mention the revised plan again. At 5, rain began striking the high windows. Jamal left with the last delivery van. Mrs. Alvarez accepted a ride from one of the volunteers. Soon Claire and I were alone in the building, surrounded by dust outlines where shelves had stood. The rain intensified. Water tapped into a metal bucket near the back wall. Claire looked up. "New leak, old flashing failure. Of course you know which kind." "I know some things." She sat on the edge of the circulation desk. "Why did your marriage end?" The question caught me almost as off guard as the one at midnight. "You know why. I know the summary. You were young. You worked too much." She left. "That is the summary. I'm asking for the truth." The room smelled like wet brick and old paper. I set down the wrench I was holding. "Lauren was offered a fellowship in London during our 3rd year of marriage," I said. She turned it down. She told me the program had changed, and I believed her. 2 years later, she said she had stayed because my father had just been diagnosed, and she knew I wouldn't go with her. "Did you ask her to stay?" "No. Did you ask why she didn't tell you?" She said she knew what I would choose. Claire's gaze held mine. And what would you have chosen? At the time? My father. That is not the same as asking her to give up London. It felt the same to her. What happened after? I tried to compensate for a sacrifice I hadn't known she made. I took fewer projects. I canceled visits with my father. I kept guessing what would make the balance fair. Nothing did. By the end, every choice had a price tag. Claire looked down at her hands. So you decided never to owe anyone again? I decided never to let someone build resentment around a thing I asked for, and the easiest way to do that was to ask for nothing. Yes. She was silent for a while. Rainwater rattled in the bucket. My mother stayed for 12 years, she said. Not with my father. With the man after him. He was always almost ready to commit, almost ready to move in, almost ready to introduce her as his partner instead of his friend. She kept turning down jobs and renewing leases because he said the timing would be better soon. Claire rubbed a thumb over a scratch in the desk. When I was 22, she told me patience was what love looked like. When I was 28, she admitted it had mostly looked like waiting. I moved closer, stopping a few feet away. So you don't wait, I said. I don't stay for potential. Not in jobs, not in cities, not with people. She looked up. That doesn't mean I need guarantees. It means I need choices. I thought asking you to stay would make me selfish. It might have. Her mouth curved without humor. Selfish is not always the worst thing a person can be for 5 honest minutes. The rain softened. I reached into my pocket and placed the brass library key on the desk between us. I'm going to revise the plan, I said. Not as a reason for you to stay, not as an apology. The estimate is wrong, the deadline is real, and this neighborhood deserves an honest submission whether you're in Denver or Chicago. She looked at the key. And you? She asked. What do you deserve? The answer rose before I could engineer it, a chance to stop confusing silence with kindness. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she picked up the key and closed her fingers around it. Submit the plan. It was not forgiveness, it was not a promise, but it was the first step away from the door she had closed. The next 36 hours moved with the strange speed of an emergency no one else could see. Megan arrived Saturday evening with 2 laptops, a roll of trace paper, and enough hostility toward bad preservation estimates to power the block. Claire canceled her farewell dinner and stayed to answer program questions. Jamal brought sandwiches. Mrs. Alvarez brought coffee strong enough to remove paint. We worked at folding tables beneath the old reading room lights. Megan redrew the floor plan while I recalculated roof loads and repair allowances. Claire built a phased operating budget that opened the tutoring rooms first and delayed the auditorium until year 2. Every few hours, one of us found a problem that seemed fatal. Every time, someone else found a smaller, more honest solution. At 11, my phone rang. It was the assisted living center. My father had become agitated and was asking for me. I stood so quickly my chair scraped the floor. Claire was already reaching for her coat. You don't have to come, I said. I know. Megan looked up from her screen. Go, I'll keep drafting. Claire drove my truck while I called the nurse. My father had not fallen. He had become convinced he needed to pick me up from school and was trying to leave through the front lobby. By the time we arrived, he sat in a chair near the nurse's station wearing slippers and an old Cubs jacket. When he saw me, relief passed across his face. There you are, he said. Your mother is worried. My mother had been dead for 9 years. I'm here, Dad. He looked at Claire. The book lady. That's me, she said. He frowned at the wall clock. You two shouldn't be out this late. Claire crouched beside his chair. We're working on the library. His confusion cleared for a moment. The one with the tall windows? Yes. Daniel said the roof is good. The roof can be saved. My father nodded as though that settled everything. Then he reached for my hand. You always liked fixing things, he said. I swallowed. I did. He looked at Claire, then back at me. Some things you don't fix. You just tell them you want them. The sentence was so precise that I wondered whether he understood more than I had told him. Then he asked whether I had finished my algebra homework. Claire did not laugh. She helped me walk him back to his room. We stayed until he fell asleep. In the parking lot, I leaned against the truck and covered my face with both hands. Claire stood beside me without touching me at first. He was clear for a second, I said. And then he wasn't. I know. Every time it happens, I think I'll be better at it. You don't have to be better at losing someone in pieces. I lowered my hands. She stepped closer and rested her forehead briefly against my shoulder. The gesture was small, almost cautious, but it carried more trust than the almost kiss on the roof. I don't want you to stay out of guilt, I said. I'm here because I chose to come. That was the difference she had been trying to teach me. We returned to the library after 1 a.m. Megan had spread revised drawings across 2 tables. Jamal was asleep in a chair with a legal pad on his chest. Mrs. Alvarez had gone home, but left a note beside the coffee machine. Do not let fear do accounting. At 2, Claire and I stood over the same floor plan. You moved the family reading room, she said. The west wall has moisture damage. That room needs street access for parents with strollers. We can add a ramp from the courtyard. That costs money. So does pretending gravity is negotiable. She gave me a tired look. You waited 3 years to flirt with me through building code? I was saving my best material. Her laugh came out before she could stop it. The sound loosened something in my chest. Megan, without looking up from her laptop, said, I'm charging both of you for making this weird. Claire leaned closer to the drawings. Her shoulder touched mine. Neither of us moved away. For a few minutes, we were what we had always been at our best. 2 people looking at the same problem and seeing more possibilities together than either could see alone. Then Claire's phone lit up with a message from Denver. Her smile faded. What is it? I asked. They sent the relocation schedule. My flight is at 4 tomorrow. The room seemed to contract around us. You said Sunday. It is Sunday. I had lost track of the day. She locked the phone and put it face down. I need to pack. We're not finished. Megan can finish the drawings. Jamal has the budget. You know the submission process. That isn't what I meant. I know. We stepped into the hallway where the others could not hear. Dawn had not yet reached the high windows. Claire looked exhausted, but there was peace in her expression now, the kind that comes after a decision has been made. I'm still going, she said. The words should not have surprised me. They did. The foundation could approve this. It could. The city could also delay 6 months. The board could change the scope. Funding could disappear again. So none of this matters? It matters enormously. She touched the edge of the rolled drawings. But you told me not to turn down a real opportunity for a possibility. You were right about that part. I felt the old rule rise in me, ready to agree, ready to bless her departure and call the pain generosity. This time, I did not let it speak first. I don't want you to go. Claire went still. I should have said it at midnight, I continued. I should have said it on the roof last summer. I should have said it every time you brought food to my door and pretended you made too much. I don't want you to go because I love you. Not because I need a program director for a building. Not because Denver is far away. I love you. And losing the chance to find out what we could be is going to hurt more than I know how to explain. Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. I stepped closer. I'm not asking you to reject the job. Then what are you asking? For the thing I was too afraid to ask for before. Choose me, too. Go to Denver tomorrow. Take the job. Build what you went there to build. And let me come see you in 2 weeks. Let me call you when I'm scared instead of pretending I'm noble. Let us make decisions together, even when the answer isn't Chicago. She stared at me for so long that I heard Megan's keyboard clicking in the next room. You would do long distance? She asked. I would do airports, bad video calls, and every delayed flight in the Midwest. Your father is here. He is. My work is here. That means I can't move tomorrow. It doesn't mean I get to make no choice at all. And your partnership vote? I may have ended that yesterday. Her brows drew together. Because of the library? Because I used my own license after Peter told me not to. If the committee thinks that disqualifies me, then the title was never worth what I was becoming to earn it. Daniel, I don't want you setting fire to your life to prove something. I'm not. I'm deciding which parts are actually mine. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away, annoyed. This is a much better answer, she said. Is it too late? She looked toward the reading room, then back at me. No, but it isn't a magic answer. I know. If we do this, you don't get to retreat the first time it becomes inconvenient. I know. You have to tell me when you're overwhelmed. You don't get to decide for me what I can handle. I know. And I'm still getting on that plane. I know. She took one more step until there was almost no space between us. Good. Then she kissed me. There was nothing rushed about it despite the deadline, the flight, and the hours we had wasted. Her hand rested against my chest. Mine settled at her waist. The kiss was warm, careful, and certain enough to make every almost between us feel like a road that had finally reached somewhere. When we pulled apart, Megan called from the other room. I'm happy for you, but the Foundation does not accept romantic declarations in place of a cost schedule. Claire laughed against my shoulder. We finished the package at 9:40 Sunday morning. At 10:15, I uploaded the structural scope, Megan's drawings, Claire's operating plan, letters from 4 neighborhood schools, and a revised capital budget 26% below the city estimate. At 10:17, the portal displayed submission received. Claire stood beside me as the confirmation appeared. There, I said. Now the building has a chance. She slipped her hand into mine. So do we. I drove her to the airport that afternoon. Her apartment was packed, her keys left with the property manager, and 3 suitcases filled the back of my truck. Mrs. Alvarez cried openly on the sidewalk. Jamal made Claire promise to answer work calls for the first week even though she no longer worked there. Megan hugged her and whispered something that made Claire glance at me and smile. At the terminal, I carried her bags to the security line. Claire touched my cheek. 2 weeks. I already checked flights. Of course you did. I made a spreadsheet. Do not ruin this. I kissed her once. Then I asked. At midnight, what would you have done if I had asked you to stay? She considered the question. I would have told you about Denver. I would have asked whether you were offering me a reason or a relationship. She adjusted the strap of her bag. If you had said what you said this morning, I still would have taken the job. That is deeply inconvenient. I'm an independent woman with excellent boundaries, I noticed. Her expression softened. But I wouldn't have spent the night believing I imagined us. The line moved forward. I'm sorry, I said. I know. She squeezed my hand. Now do better. She walked toward security, turned once to look back, and kept going. Long distance was not romantic in the ways movies promised. It was calendars, missed connections, and eating dinner together through screens, while one of us muted to answer an email. It was learning that Claire became quiet when she was exhausted, and that I became overly helpful when I was afraid. It was two people practicing the unglamorous discipline of saying what they meant before resentment could translate it. I flew to Denver 14 days later. She showed me the literacy labs, the neighborhood where she had rented a small apartment, and the mountain view from the office conference room. I did not spend the visit comparing her new life to Chicago. I asked questions. I listened. I understood why she had gone. She returned 3 weeks later to visit my father. He was having a clear afternoon. He remembered Claire after only one reminder and called her the book lady, which pleased her more than it should have. When she stepped out to get coffee, he looked at me. "You finally told her," he said. "I did. Was it terrible?" "Yes." He smiled. "Good things often are, right before they become good." The foundation approved the Ashland project in October, but with conditions. The city had to match funds, and the nonprofit needed a director with capital project experience. Claire joined planning meetings remotely, not as a candidate, but as the person who knew the program better than anyone. By February, the city approved the match. By March, the board offered Claire the director position. I did not ask what she would choose. Not because I had gone silent again, but because I had learned the difference between making my desire known and making her decision for her. I told her I wanted a life with her. I told her I could spend part of each month in Denver if she stayed. I told her I would move when my father's care allowed it. I also told her that if the Chicago job was the work she wanted, I would be waiting across the hall, or anywhere else we decided together. She took a week. Then, at 12:17 on a rainy Thursday night, someone knocked 3 quick times and once softly on my door. When I opened it, Claire stood there with 2 suitcases and the brass library key. "I accepted the Chicago position," she said. I stared at her. "Say something." "You're here." "I am." "For good? For the job? For the building? And for the man who finally learned that asking is not the same as taking?" She held out the key. "So, Daniel Mercer, I have a question." I laughed because I was already crying. She smiled. "Are you going to ask me to stay this time?" I took the key, then took her hand. "Yes," I said. "Stay. Not smaller? Not waiting? Stay and build a life with me that belongs to both of us." She stepped across the threshold. A year later, the Ashland Literacy Center opened beneath restored, arched windows. Mateo's height marks were preserved behind glass in the family reading room. My father cut the ribbon with Claire, though he forgot halfway through why everyone was applauding. Peter attended and told me my partnership vote had merely been delayed, not destroyed. I thanked him and declined when the offer finally came. Megan and I had started a small adaptive reuse practice of our own. Claire kept apartment 4B for exactly 6 more months. Then we knocked down no walls, despite my professional qualifications. We simply carried her books across the hall, 1 box at a time. Sometimes love asks someone to stay. Sometimes it asks them to go and trusts them to come back. The difference is not distance. It is whether both people are free to choose and brave enough to say what they are choosing. If this story reminded you of a moment when silence almost cost something real, share what you would have said at that door. And subscribe for more stories about people who discover that love is not a sacrifice demanded. It is a life built together.